Hello, and welcome to this Price of Job tutorial. In this video, we'll be taking a look at how to estimate a pad foundation. To access the pad foundation module, just go to the Foundations category here in the module toolbar and open the Foundation submenu. And here you have Pad Foundation. This gives you the option of adding the pad foundation in a new folder or adding it to an existing folder, in this case the Foundation folder. If we'd like to just add it to the existing folder, we can open this folder here and then simply click Add and then choose Pad Foundation. And this adds a pad foundation to our foundation folder. Here we have our sketch pane, description pane, and estimate pane, and stage settings pane. We can expand any of these to full screen so we can have a better look. Under the pad foundation settings, we can set the pad's quantity, either by using the plus and minus symbols here, or by simply inputting a number directly. When we select the excavation depth, indicator arrows appear on the sketch to indicate the measurement's dimension. This also applies to pad length, pad width, and concrete depth. And we can adjust any of these as necessary. Below, we have separate sections for each stage of work to be completed. Starting with excavation, let's minimize our sketch pane so we can have a better look at the estimate pane here. If no excavation is needed, we can deselect this stage and it's removed from our estimate. If we'll be doing the excavation, we can select that and then choose whether the excavation is to be performed by hand or by machine. And as we toggle between the two, we can see the cost automatically updated here within the estimate pane. Here we can see that the labour involved to excavate the trenches by hand totals £520, and if we change the unit from cubic meters of excavation to per hour, we can see that's approximately 19 hours of labour. Whereas if we select machine excavation, the price drops a little, as we can see the plant and tool costs are not expensive, and the labour is greatly reduced. In this case, only 8 hours. If excavating by machine, we can select the drop-down menu here to select what type of machine we choose to use. Under the cog symbol, we can adjust the productivity of the machine in terms of cubic meters per hour, delivery and collection costs, and fuel consumption per hour. These figures are consistent with the type of machine currently selected. For example, the 1.5 ton excavator that we currently have selected is capable of moving 0.95 cubic meters per hour. If we were to change this to a larger excavator, say an 8 ton, we would see that the productivity increases to 5.6. Next in our stages, we have formwork. If we expand our sketch and deselect the formwork, we can see it's removed from our diagram. And also, if we take a look at our estimate pane, we can see that the formwork has been removed from our estimate as well. So if we re-add formwork, we can see it's re-added to the estimate here, as well as in the sketch. Under the formwork settings, we can select the thickness of shuttering plywood, either 9mm, 12mm, or 18, and as we do, the formwork estimate is automatically updated here to 18mm plywood. Let's set that to 12, and then we can select the timber, either 47 by 50mm, 47 by 75, 47 by 95, or 75 by 75mm. Let's select 47 by 75, and this is updated here within the estimate. For reinforcement mesh, if we deselect, this will remove it from the estimate and from the sketch pane. If we re-add it back in, it's added to both. Here we have options of using either single layer or double layer of mesh. And then we can select the size of mesh, either A142, A193, A252, A393, or custom. If we select custom, this opens a drop-down menu which gives us access to the Price of Job library with a greater variety of meshes, including B category mesh. If there's a mesh we're looking for that's not represented here, we can click Edit Pack, and this opens the Price of Job library here, where we can search in greater detail or add a new material. Here we'll give our material a title, select the units, the price, the category, and a website link. and this will commit this material to the price of job library for us to use on this job as well as to access later on. Next, in the reinforcement mesh, we have options of using either single chairs or continuous reinforcement bars, and we can also adjust the spacing of these. Under the cog, we can set the percentage of overlap, and by doing so, price of job will automatically calculate how much reinforcement mesh is needed. Currently at 0% we need 10.2 square meters. If we increase our overlap to 10%, the total amount of mesh will increase to 11.2. Next, we'll take a look at the disposal of soil stage. If the soil is to be disposed of on-site, we can deselect this stage. And an exclusion is added to our automatic description here that says disposal of surplus excavated materials is not included. And this is an automatic description, and so long as the automatic description is tick-marked here, any changes that we make throughout our module will be automatically updated with nicely written descriptions. For example, when we add the disposal of soil back in, an inclusion is added to say disposal of surplus excavated material will be off-site. Now in loading this soil, we have an option to either do this by hand and wheelbarrow, or by machine. And if we consult the estimate pane here, we can compare the costs of these two methods. By machine, $486, and by hand, $437. And we'll notice here that the volume of soil to be removed is indicated, 6.25 cubic meters. If we compare this to the actual excavation amount, this is only 5.12 cubic meters. And the reason for this difference is the expansion rate of the soil. If we click the cog settings here, we can see the expansion rate here is set to 22%. And you can adjust this depending on the type of soil in your excavation. Price of job has also calculated the number and size of skips required to remove this volume of soil. So in this instance, 6 cubic meters of soil will require one 8-yard skip. If we require extra skips, we can use the plus and minus to add those. Or we can use the drop-down menu to select a different size skip, rubble sacks, or lorry. Next, we'll take a look at the concrete stage. Here under concrete, we can specify whether we'll be using ready mix, mix on site, or concrete pump. And our estimate pane immediately updates to show us the cost differences for each of these. So for ready mix, we have the option of choosing either C15 mix, C20, C25, C30, C35, C40, or C45. If we're mixing on site, then we can select our mix ratio, 1:3, 1:4, 1:6, or a custom mix. And here we can set the ratio of our cement to ballast. If we're using a concrete pump, we can specify the number of pumps that we'll be using, as well as the ready mix. And we'll notice below that the concrete part load charge is automatically being added. If we select the settings cog, we can adjust the part load charge, the minimum concrete load, as well as the productivity in cubic meters per day of the pump. If we're missing any materials and we'd like to add those, we can simply go to the relevant stage, and here we can add new materials, add new labor, add new plant and tool, or add new other costs. If materials will be supplied for this job, and you're only being asked to quote on the labor, you can access the filter tool here to filter your quote to exclude materials. And this will only estimate the labor, plant and tool, and other costs. This is specific only to this one module, however, and you'll note that the costs for these other modules did not change when we deselected materials. If we need to deselect material or labor for all of our modules, we can access the global filters here. And here we can show or hide materials for all modules, and you can see our prices update immediately as we do so. For now, we'll be sure to keep all of our materials included and exit the global filters. If you have any notes that you would like to add to the description, we can add a note here, and this opens up a simple text editor with various formatting tools, as well as bullet points for inclusions, allowances, and this would be used if we're not sure of the cost of a material. For example, we might say 80 pounds per cubic meter of concrete. And this will be added to our description. Because we added this as a separate note, even if we deselect concrete, this note will persist. If you need to, you can deselect the auto descriptions and here you can edit the automatic descriptions as necessary. But any changes that you make will be automatically erased once you activate Automatic again. So if you wish to use the automatic descriptions and you do have any changes that need to be made, make sure you do those last. If you'll be doing 2 pads of different sizes, here you can adjust the title simply by clicking in the title range here and inputting a specifier. We can call this one 800 by 800. And this title is updated here in the folder bar. And then we could add another pad foundation by selecting the Add button and choosing Pad Foundation here. Or we could select it from the toolbar and selecting from the submenu, Pad Foundation. Or we could simply duplicate the existing pad foundation, select the new one, modify our title as necessary. Here we'll say 1200 by 1200. And then adjust our measurements. So here we could set the length by 1200 and the width by 1200. And now each of our pad foundations is clearly labeled and estimated for costs. If we look under the Reports tab, we can see here our quote. Here are the 2 pad foundations we just added, pad foundation 800 by 800 and 1200 by 1200. Each of these has the allowance that we added as our separate notes, and we can show as much detail here as we wish. The title of the quote we can select as either estimate, quote, quotation, or proposal. We can set the level of pricing detail breakdowns, so currently we have just the grand total pricing here at the bottom, but we can also select subtotal pricing for each folder, and we can also select an itemization of materials, labor, plant and tool, and other costs. And we can also choose just to have a simple quote which shows just the description of work to be performed with the pricing. And we can simplify the pricing even further by changing the detail to grand total pricing only. Or we can show advanced pricing, which shows an itemized list of all material, labor, plant and tool, and other costs. Under the advanced settings, we can show or hide the descriptions of work to be performed. We can show or hide the materials list. We can hide the labor list and the plant and tool list as well. We can also conceal the pricing to show just a table of quantities, or we can conceal the number of units required. At the top, our folder is indicated by an icon, which we can show or hide. Now we'll take a look at a new feature in Price a Job that allows you to customize the formatting of your bullet points. Currently, they are set to auto, which shows all the inclusions, exclusions, and allowances. But we can customize this to show all of these as bullet points, circles, diamonds, squares, arrows, or none. For this example, we'll leave it set to auto. This feature has just been added to Price a Job, so you can customize this aspect of your quotes as well. Next, let's take a look at project notes. If we select project notes here, we can scroll to the bottom of our quote, and we'll see some disclaimers added to the bottom. We can select any of these disclaimers to delete, or select all to delete all. Then we can click this plus icon here, and this opens a template library. We can open each category here to reveal a collection of well-written disclaimer templates that you can add to your quote simply by clicking on the text. For example, this one says the depths of the foundation design may be subject to change, and in this event, the contractor reserves the right to amend the contract sum. So for example, let's say after you've quoted the customer, building control requests that you dig deeper and add more concrete. In that case, then your right to amend this quote is clearly stated here in writing right on the proposal. You can add more lines to your disclaimer simply by clicking the plus button and selecting from other categories. If you'd like to make any edits to the text before you add it, you can simply click on the pen, and this will allow you to make any changes to the text before you click to add it to the proposal. Once you've assembled a series of disclaimers that you plan to reuse on multiple quotes, then you can click the pen icon here next to Project Notes, and you can save this either under your current template, titled My Notes, or set a new template, perhaps we would call this My New Notes, and save this as a template. And now you have a fast, easy way of quickly changing the disclaimer notes at the bottom of your proposal, simply by changing the project note template. You also have here the ability to delete any note templates that you won't be using anymore, or you can reset all settings to the defaults. Once your proposal is complete, then you have the option to either print it out, export it as a PDF, export it as a Word document, or email it directly to your client from right within Price-A-Job. And that's how to use the Pad Foundation module. Thank you for using Price-A-Job.